This is Michael talking from the CFP team, and there is Catherine.
Hello. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. Evening.
Good evening, good night, whatever time it is.
So thanks everybody who I guess is trickling in to watch office hours. So we're here today to just answer any questions you might have about the call for proposals, the proposal submission process, JuliaCon in general. So if you want to ask a question, just post it in the YouTube chat and we can bring it up on screen and answer any questions. Oh, we're live on Pi Data too. Nice.
Yes.
Love to see it.
Yeah, so maybe while we wait, we can just talk a little bit about the current status of submissions. So things are slowly ramping up as we see. So people are probably finishing up their proposals in the last minute. So in case you guys have not yet finished it, then basically don't feel worried about it. I think you're still in the majority of the crowd. All right. Okay, so a few questions are slowly dripping in. Shall we get going with the first one?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so oops, that was the wrong clicked. That's what I wanted to go for. So the first question is by Alex Jones. How long roughly will a successful proposal be? How much detail to go into? Yeah, I think basically a good length for proposal is really to explain what you want to talk about, to give the reason for the Julia community to be interested in that topic. I don't think that necessarily needs to be the full 5,000 characters, but it should sort of give an overview of the content and basically the relevance. I think those are really the main points, and I guess you can say that in a few paragraphs.
The one thing I would add to that is if you're giving a talk about something that's like a little more domain specialized. So like, for example, I've given talks about physics before and not everybody going to JuliaCon is a physicist. So it can be helpful just to also include a little bit of information, like not only for the reviewers, but for people who want to watch your talk about like what's sort of the relevance of your specific domain, like package or example, just to the wider Julia community.
Yeah, so sort of to summarize, it's not so much the length that counts, but more that the content is really, making it clear to people what is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
I think I can do the next one. So we had a question. I wonder if I can present in Spanish, even if the paper is in English. So the answer is yes. You are welcome to give your talk, since they're going to be pre-recorded in multiple languages or in one specific language, and that language does not have to be English. So we are asking people, you can also submit your proposal in another language, but we ask that you also provide an English translation this year just for ease of review. But yeah, you're very welcome to present your talk in another language. Just please, if you want to do that, make a note in the abstract so that we know if your talk or proposal is accepted, that we can just put in the program, this talk is going to be presented in X, Y, and Z languages. So in this case, maybe Spanish. Just so people, if they're really interested in watching Spanish language talks or they don't speak Spanish, they can be forewarned before the talk.
And on that note, we are definitely still looking for people to review proposals in the future. So especially when it comes to non-English languages where our review pool is not so established yet. So if you are not just only interested in proposing a talk, but also maybe in reviewing another talk, in another proposal in Spanish, and of course that goes to everyone in the audience for whatever language they speak, we're definitely looking for reviewers in non-English languages. So that would be really appreciated. So Yeah, then maybe let's go for the next one. Let's go for this one here. The question again by Alex is, Alex Jones, would you consider PDE solvers as quite domain specific? I guess if you really talk about PDE solvers on a general level, I would not necessarily call that domain specific because, yeah, I mean, the Julia community is really quite centered around computing and high performance computing and scientific problems in particular. And PDEs, I would personally consider a recurring theme. So you don't necessarily need to explain what a PDE is, for example, to the Julia community. But of course, if your solver has specific features that are only occurring in your computational domain, then I would say this is something that you might need to emphasize to make sure that people understand why this specific feature is relevant.
So we have another one. This is actually a question that I feel like a lot of people have. How can I know if I should aim for the 10-minute talk or the 30-minute talk? So thanks for asking this, Martin, because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering this. So one thing that I would say is if you have like a strong idea already of what it is you want to say, then you can, one thing I actually have done in the past when I asked myself a similar question is literally just practice the talk and time it. And I don't know if other people have this problem, but usually when I practice talks, I talk really, really, really fast because I'm anxious and nervous. So just remember, you know, if you practice your talk and it comes in at like 13 minutes, you could probably actually turn that into a 30-minute talk if, you know, you talk slower and build in a little bit more time for questions and stuff like that. So it's up to you. The other thing is that we can also, like when we review the proposals, if we see something that looks like somebody submitted for the 10-minute talk, but it looks like they have like so much material that it would make more sense as a 30-minute talk, we can kind of shift it between the two streams. So if you're not sure, you're not handcuffing yourself to a specific talk length. But my advice would be, try just going through and like practicing like what you can imagine yourself saying about the talk, and that should give you some idea. I think another way to tell is like if you have like an involved demo you want to do, or in general, if you have a demo, I think a 30-minute talk is better, just because demos always take longer than you think. And if you have more than like the most simple example, I think a 30-minute talk is a better way to present it. So that's my advice.
I think something to add is also, if this topic you're talking about is a topic that is not so much established in the Julia community, so sort of where you're introducing a new scientific field or something, it might really be worth to spend the time of introducing the field by itself, even if it's not completely the actual focus of the talk you want to have. Just to make it available to the community and tell people why it's relevant and get them a little bit interested. And I think for that, spending 5 to 10 minutes of just introduction is completely worth it. And that would also, in my opinion, then tend to lean more towards a 30-minute talk. And of course, sort of the other end of the scale would be a topic that everybody in the Julia community knows. And then you can more or less skip the introduction. And that would sort of lean more towards a focused 10-minute talk, in my opinion.
Cool.
Maybe let's take the next one here. So Jakob asked that he is asked basically in short whether he needs to sort of prove knowledge of his expertise. I would say in general, we are not so much doing that. I mean, if you, for example, have a paper or something that is relevant to your work, it could be worth just adding the reference to make it clear for reviewers that you are basically, that you are really an expert talking about it. But in general, I think it's less that you really have to prove expertise. It should be clear to the reviewers that you know what you're talking about from the description, such that they can have a judgment on that. But the key emphasis point for JuliaCon is less the expertise. It's really more the specificity for the community and the usefulness in general to the
So Logan asked, should we include links to our package if we are talking about one? So in general, I think it's a good idea. Like, for example, if you're introducing a new package for just off the top of my head, plotting, it's helpful to include a link to the package so that, for example, like the reviewers for the program can just go look and see like what level of development the package is at. So we do, for the review process, try and blind reviews so that nobody's name is associated with the proposal when it's reviewed, to try and remove bias. So of course, if you include a link to your package, it's a little bit de-anonymizing. So it's up to you. You don't have to include a link to your package, but in general, it can help, especially if your package is like you're introducing a new package, or as we've mentioned earlier, like if it's domain specific and a domain that not a lot of people are familiar with, it can help to just show like this package really exists. It has tests, people are using it. There's like a contributor community. There's example notebooks, stuff like that. So it's up to you. But I would say for new packages or domain specific ones, it can be helpful.
Yeah, and the next talk is once again from the next question is once again from Martin as a follow-up. So he's noticed that 30 minutes talks are generally for packages that have a general audience, and 10 minutes are more for niche topics. Is this true? I'm not entirely sure. So I remember, so the first talk I did at JuliaCon, for example, about basically quantum chemistry package written in Julia, that was, I would say, that is pretty much a niche topic. Nevertheless, it was a 30-minute talk. So that is certainly a counterexample, I would say. I guess, I mean, sort of in line with what I said, that new topics tend to take longer to explain. To some extent, this is a little bit true that the 10 minutes talks are really about a specific package doing one specific task, whereas the 30-minute ones are therefore more a bit of an overview, have more of an overview, content, I guess. But I don't think there's this general tendency. What do you think?
I mean, so my experience was like, I think in JuliaCon 2019. Yes. So Matt Fishman and I gave a 30-minute talk about this package itensors.jl that we are working on. And that was like a pretty niche topic. Like it's very focused on people doing computational physics. But because we were introducing the package and then doing demos and then also talking about the design decisions we made when building the package, it was a good fit for a 30-minute talk. Versus, if we had just been introducing the package without a demo and without talking about specific design choices we made, then a 10-minute talk might have been a better fit. So I wouldn't necessarily assume that if your topic is like niche somehow, that a 10-minute talk is the only place it can go.
So for sure, I would not say that like niche topics are not worthy for a 30-minute talk or something like that. This is definitely not true. It's really about the sort of overview you want to give, or the sort of topic you want to, the sort of content you want to present, that determines whether it's a 10 or 30-minute talk. And it's not whether the community consider this relevant to be given a 30-minute talk. I think that's not so much. That should really not be your guiding factor. All right, so again, Martin has another follow-up talk. Is it possible to change the type of the talk you applied for? Yeah, sure. I mean, it's possible. I mean, as Kate said, it's basically like there is still some possibility during the review process to change it. And I think until we do the scheduling, it's pretty flexible, right? So if you, for example, have the feeling that a 10-minute talk, a 30-minute talk is too much to prepare, I guess it can be shortened to 10 minutes. I don't necessarily see a problem there.
So Logan has another question. What's the best talk type for new Julia users who aren't domain experts yet? So I think this is kind of the whole raison d'etre of the experiences talk type. So for folks who aren't familiar, Julia experiences are for people who are newcomers to the Julia community, and they're sort of shorter talks about like your experiences learning Julia. Maybe you took Julia in a class, or you're learning it for work, or just for your interest. And so experiences talks are about, like it says, sort of what your impressions of Julia have been as a newcomer, like maybe from another language, maybe it's your first programming language, things you like, things you don't like, things that would be helpful for you as a newcomer to the Julia community. Also like things you like or don't like about the Julia community itself. So I would definitely recommend folks who are newcomers submit to the experiences track. Even if it's like your first day learning Julia, those are some of the best experiences talks we get. So please don't feel that like you're not qualified to give a talk like that or something. We really want to encourage everybody who's a member of the community to consider submitting talks, especially to the experiences track.
In fact, I guess you all know this. If you have already spent some time doing a certain topic, let's say Julia, for example, then you forget about the problems because you sort of either have gotten used to them or you, I don't know, you sort of just consider them part of the game or cannot be changed or something. And I think, I mean, for us as a community, it's really, really important to see what people struggle with and what people find actually also interesting, what motivated them to really get into the topic and get into Julia. And yeah, so therefore, actually, I would also really encourage people to give talks, even though they're new, and exactly tell us about these aspects. Tell us about what annoys you and what you like.
Cool. Other questions?
All right, so the first stream has cut off, but please feel free to ask more if you have something on your mind.
Oh, we have a question again from Martin. Why is there a special track for the jump packages? So my understanding of why this is that Jump has had their sort of own conference for a long time at jump.dev, and this year they're having a conference track like sort of simultaneously, or it's like sort of under the umbrella of the wider JuliaCon. So because Jump has its own community that kind of mostly interacts with Jump, it was decided that they would have like their own sort of conference stream, just so for people who are like extremely interested in Jump, they can just know where to go to, you know, have all Jump all the time. But definitely if you are not a Jump expert, like I actually know very little about it, but I'm probably going to watch some talks just to like find out what's going on over there. So if you're at all interested in like what the heck's going on with Jump, I'm sure they would be happy to have people attend their talks and ask questions.
Yeah, and then there's the next one coming up by Alex again. Any advice for first-time speakers in terms of pacing and content? I guess for speaking in a conference, and especially when it's pre-recorded, what is quite important that cannot be understated is really that you don't speak too fast, that you really go step by step, because unlike a physical presentation, people don't really have the chance to interrupt you. So I think it's really important to sort of be clear in the arguments in what you're presenting, and rather take it slow than too fast. Also because people can ask questions, but they have to type them on a chat system, and you will probably be around to answer them. But then when they're typing them, they cannot actually listen to what is going on in the YouTube video. And therefore, I think it's really important to not try to do too much and put too much content in your talk.
Another thing I guess I would add for first-time speakers in general, and for any speaker, is just don't overestimate the amount of familiarity people have with your specific domain area. I really struggle with this actually when I give talks at JuliaCon, because normally when I give talks, it's to an audience of people who are like have a lot of physics background or a lot of like certain kinds of CS background, like HPC background. So one thing that's really great about the Julia community is that there's people from all kinds of different like academic or industry backgrounds. People have expertise in a lot of different things, but that can also mean that you really need to like set the stage at the start of your talk. Like my talk is about, let's say, like statistical methods for biology, and we're going to be talking about implementation of these techniques in this talk. So if you're not familiar with these, here's like a quick 2-minute introduction to what they are and what they try to accomplish. I'm not going to give a specific example because I'm not a biologist, so I'd probably say something really dumb. But I think, yeah, it can be very helpful for people just to kind of give them an on-ramp in the first few like slides of your talk or your workshop or whatever, even so they can just decide, like, is it worth it for me to stay here and keep watching? Because maybe this isn't my specific area, but I can still learn something from this talk. Or like I'm not going to connect with this at all. I'm just going to, this person sounds cool and it sounds like what they're doing is very interesting, but this is not for me.
Cool.
Yeah. And then we have a question from Patrick, which I'll put up. Are there any plans for physical catch-ups in the future, or will things remain virtual for now? So we do have some plans to allow people to host like local meetups during JuliaCon. So obviously, this is going to depend on the situation in your area. Like the pandemic is still ongoing and different places have different restriction levels and people have different comfort levels with meeting up in person. But if you're interested in hosting like a local meetup, like for one afternoon or one evening, your local area during the conference, get in touch with the organizing community because we may be able to offer some support, like buy pizza or something, or like if you need to pay a fee to reserve space in like a bar or something like that. So if you're interested in helping to organize a local meetup, we actually do have somebody who is coordinating that. So please feel free to send an email to the organizing committee and we can put you in touch with that person.
Also, maybe a general comment, because I'm not sure how general you meant the question. In fact, there are already a number of meetups, like regular meetups all around the world, which are related to Julia. They coordinate at meetup.com, some at the Discourse forum, and so on and so forth. So in case you're generally interested to get in touch with the Julia community or in the area around you, just essentially have a Google search, and I'm pretty sure you will find something. That is also a possibility to get in touch and talk with people physically about Julia. Where's the next question? I'm a bit lost. There we are. Yeah, so Logan has a follow-up to build on Alex's question, suggestions to record, like tools to record the talk and make sure the quality is good. So I don't recall the details, but I think for last year's JuliaCon, there has been, actually already for 2 years ago, there has been a great to-do video by Jane, right? Kate, do you remember? Yeah, exactly, by Jane, which has been uploaded to YouTube, which basically walks you through some screen recording software that actually, I forgot the name, OSM or something.
OBS, Open Broadcast Studio, probably.
Exactly, OBS. Yes, you're right. It was OBS, which was so I have never actually done any recording before I recorded my JuliaCon talk, and I managed to do it. So it is possible and actually not too hard. So this OBS studio, it's a really nice talk by Jane, who really walks you through the steps to do it. Gives you also some general recommendations for like light, how to sit, how to place yourself in the room. Some ideas for like microphone, for example, how you make sure that you're audible. So that is something that I would really recommend to watch and then just follow the general guidelines. So I think it worked okay for me.
Yeah, I would really recommend OBS, which is A, open source software, which is cool, and then B, it works on most operating systems. So whether you're a Windows, Linux, or Mac user, it should work for you. The other thing that I've found very helpful in the past when recording talks I've given is just like record the talk like 3 or 4 times, and then you can pick between the best one. So if you go through it and you're like, oh, that was terrible, just re-record it. It's not a big deal. Yeah, and you're not going to charge money to record your talk multiple times, and then you can go through and pick the one that you think is best. And so don't feel like married to having to do like one perfect take. It's very possible to do multiple takes if you want to.
Cool.
And then we have another question from Patrick. As for the recordings, are we meant to link a recording in the proposal? So you do not have to link a recording in the proposal. What'll happen is if your talk is accepted to JuliaCon, we will send out instructions closer to the conference about how to make your recording and how to upload it. We're going to try and have captioning, including in non-English languages. So we'll give you detailed instructions about how to deal with that closer to the conference. But you only need to worry about making a recording if/when your talk is accepted. And we also don't, so for some proposal types, like for Birds of a Feather or for workshops, we don't use pre-submitted recordings. Those are live broadcasts. So depending on the type of proposal you're submitting, you may or may not need to make a recording at all.
Yeah, I think we actually forgot one in here again by Martin.
Yes.
Could you tell us something about Julia's proceedings? So, as some of you might know, when you're giving a talk or workshop at JuliaCon, you have the possibility to submit an article to the JuliaCon proceedings, and that article will basically be basically published as an open source. Oh, sorry, that's actually it builds an open source software, but it's an open access journal, which the proposal committee runs in collaboration with the what are their named basically with the people behind the Journal of Open Source Software. So there's a collaboration. Sorry, do you know the name?
No. Sorry, I was agreeing with you. It's the folks behind JOS.
Yeah, exactly. It's the folks behind JOS. It's their software, so it's really, again, forced open source. And so that is basically the possibility you have. And the way it works is more or less like in any standard journal. So you write up a small PDF document based on a Markdown LaTeX typesetting, and then you submit it to GitHub as a pull request. So that's the part which is a bit different from standard software. From standard journals, and then it's sort of the review process goes on in GitHub as a pull request, and basically when the pull request gets merged, meaning when the review is over, then your paper gets automatically published, and that's more or less how it works. So if you give a talk, you can submit such a paper, the review goes through, and it's published.
I actually didn't mean to post that to all of people in the PyData chat are going to be like, what on earth? Where did that come from? Anyway, it's Saturday morning, so, and as you can see, I'm still working on my copy, so that's my excuse.
All right. Feel free to shoot more questions.
Absolutely.
Oh. So I guess this is a follow-up by Alex on the question of JOS versus FOSS versus JuliaCon proceedings. So the question is, do we need to submit papers along the talk? And basically the answer is no. So the way it works with these JuliaCon proceedings is that once the conference is completely over, you have a few months. So I don't remember the exact time, but it's usually not instantly. It's you have a few months to write up the paper and then to submit the paper. And typically, it's, let's say these 2 months extend quite a bit in the sense that it usually takes quite some time until everything is over with reviews and so on and so forth. So I don't think there's a really hard deadline on this, if I remember. So basically it's not instantly, you have some time to prepare the material.
Yeah. Logan asks, will there be a JuliaCon podcast this year? And he votes yes. So this is a bit of an unfair question because Logan is also helping to organize the conference. So I agree, there should be a JuliaCon podcast this year, and I also vote for Logan organizing it. Thanks, Logan, for volunteering.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of that. Patrick has another one. Can we somehow express preference for which proposal is most important to us? I mean, I would say you can, in the sense that you just put a note on the proposal text. However, I mean, in the end, if the proposal gets accepted, of course, you're not forced to do the presentation, right? So, for example, if there's like 2 or 3 proposals which get accepted, you can still afterwards decide for yourself, okay, this is the one I'm actually going to do, and this is the one that I don't want to do. Or, I mean, you can always get in touch, like when this happens in the end, that you have multiple accepted proposals, and ask us what we think, which one you should do, or something like that. So that is, yeah, there's no real pressure in that sense.
I mean, you can also just give multiple talks too. Especially yes. like nobody's, I mean, you're not paying by the minute to upload like these YouTube videos. So the more the merrier. It's always good to have more talks rather than fewer. So if you feel up to recording multiple talks, I would just suggest doing it.
Exactly. That's true.
And then we have another question from Alex about Birds of a Feather. How much organization do Birds of a Feather groups need? They're more informal talks, correct? So for anybody who's not familiar, Birds of a Feather are like interest group meetings. So they actually need very little organization. So basically what you need to organize a BOF, a Birds of a Feather, is a time that you want the BOF to be held and a topic that it's going to be about. And then maybe like the names of 1 or 2 people to host it. So when you have a BOF, it's literally just like a bunch of people gathering in a chat room to discuss the topic of the BOF. So for example, we've had like GPU computing BOFs that Tim Bissard and Valentin Charavi organized in previous years. And it's just everybody piles into like a Discord chat room and just discusses GPUs. And the organizers are in charge of like muting people if they talk too much. And that's about it. And we just want you to submit a time zone this year because we want, like, for example, if people want to have a BOF about the Julia Lang community in their country, and their country, you know, is at like in an Asia Pacific time zone, then it makes sense for that BOF to occur at a time that's convenient for everybody in that time zone, i.e. not like 3 a.m. local time. So we just want to make sure that we'll be able to schedule the BOF at a time that makes sense. So all you really need to do is be like I want to have a BOF about this topic. Here's the organizers of the BOF at this time, and then maybe write a few sentences about like why this would be a good BOF to have. It's completely fine to have one about like, you know, the community in your country or your language, or like a specific sort of topic that you work in. So for example, like bioinformatics in Julia would be a great BOF. So BOFs are not very intense to organize. We basically we just show up on time to run the session. That's it.
Yeah, they're generally meant to sort of like jumpstart a discussion or jumpstart a agglomeration of a sub-community inside Julia. And I guess what is helpful is to sort of think a few leading questions to get the whole discussion going. And I mean, if you want to talk about multiple things that are sort of related under a head topic, to sort of structure a little bit how much time you want to spend on things. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
So Martin has another question. Do we know if next year's JuliaCon will be virtual or physical? I think the short answer is no. We'll probably have to decide that closer to the and of course that'll be next year's committee deciding this too. Yeah, I mean it depends, completely on like what the COVID and travel situation is like. So, I mean, this far into the pandemic, I don't want to make any guesses about what's going to happen. Like, so.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everybody would like to meet in person, so if possible, then this will at least be taken into account, I would say. I mean, it's not that virtual is the new default for JuliaCon. I'm not expecting that personally, but again, I mean, we'll see what happens next year. Yeah, so Martin has also thrown in hybrid could be an interesting option. So in fact, actually, we have discussed this a little bit this year, whether we would do hybrid or not, and decided to sort of settle on this idea of local meetups as sort of a compromise. The reason is mostly that hybrid is surprisingly tricky to organize. So you have to really, especially because we really wanted this year to have the ability of people to join really from all over the world. Because the problem is, as soon as you go hybrid, you're sort of locking into a time zone to some extent. And that makes it actually quite tricky for people to really join in one conference. And this year, with the virtual option, we really have the flexibility to sort of have the conference run simultaneously in multiple time zones at the same time. And that's sort of been the tipping point for us to move from hybrid towards fully virtual.
Sorry, I think I just did this right after you showed it. So Martin asks again, where can I find info about the local meetups, specifically the locations where they will happen? So right now we don't have any specific locations because we need people like locally based in each spot that a meetup could happen to organize it. Because like, for example, if you want to have a meetup in like Buenos Aires, I mean, the JuliaCon committee does not know great places to have a meetup there. Since none of us are based in Buenos Aires, sadly, or like Mexico City, or I think we probably have someone in Berlin. But like if you want to have a local meetup in like Reykjavik, also like I mean, we don't know where the best spot is in Reykjavik to have a meetup. So we're looking for local partners, like local members of the Julia community, to be like to step up and say like, hey, I'm willing to call this pizza place and have them put the stream on TV, or just not even do that, just hang out and talk about Julia. So if that's something that interests you, just like, finding a spot and getting some folks together, like advertising, hey, we're going to meet at this day, this time, in this spot in our city, please reach out again to the organizing committee, because we would love to have that happen. Yeah, and we may be able to offer like some, small financial support for that too, just so folks can get pizza or something. So basically, the short answer is the local meetups will happen where we can find people to volunteer to organize them. So if you want to have a local meetup in your city, volunteer to organize.
Yeah, and I guess there will be some sort of an overview somewhere on the conference website as time gets closer to the conference.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not promising too much, but I'm pretty sure. So Logan asked whether there will be JuliaCon socks this year. That's a new one for me. Do you know anything about this?
So we have discussed various options for swag this year. I cannot confirm or deny the question about socks, although I really hope we do get socks because I love socks. Again, if anybody has any suggestions for swag you really want, email the organizing committee, because that way we can viciously peer pressure the person in charge of swag to get us the swag that we want. So I strongly encourage people to engage in voter fraud by constantly emailing the organizing committee about how we need socks.
Yeah, and so Patrick already just said that he would buy it, so we would at least have 2 people with UK to Patrick.
Oh, I would buy like so many socks. Like it would be unreasonable the amount of Julia socks I would buy.
You just would order a truckload, right? So just for you, it would be worth it.
A lifetime supply. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah, of course. I mean, you can also use this YouTube chat now to make cool suggestions. So Alex has just suggested to have JuliaCon branded waffle irons, which I think is actually a really nice idea.
You got to get you got to impress in the waffle though, like the Julia logo. Otherwise,
yeah, exactly.
No.
Exactly. But I guess shipment could be quite expensive. You know, like a T-shirt or socks is reasonable, but a waffle iron is quite heavy. But I mean, it would be worth it, right? A lifetime of Julia waffles.
Yeah, well, until the waffle iron breaks, then you got to fix it. So Martin has another question. Have you published in Julia's proceedings? If so, could you tell us about your experience? So I personally have not. Michael, have you?
Yeah, I have. We did it, I think, 2 years ago with our DFDK paper. It was probably the best review experience I've had in all my scientific papers. I mean, just the fact that quite literally, you make a Git repository, you put the text files in, you publish it on GitHub, you open a pull request, and that is your paper submission. I mean, that is really quite amazing. So the whole system, the whole machinery behind it has surprised me a lot in a positive sense. And I mean, the reviews were really nice in the sense that it's also, again, public. Everybody can see it. It was really constructive feedback because, it was basically assessing our software. So people have actually opened issues in our repository as a result of that. The reviewers have done that. So it was really quite productive and constructive also with respect to the whole ecosystem of software that we have built. And I really enjoyed the experience. And writing it was, writing a paper is writing a paper. I mean, you have to sit down and actually think about the story and so on, but it was a lot of fun. And overall, I would really recommend people to do it. It took a bit of time until the reviews were done and it was finally published. So, but I mean, that's sort of the way it is, I guess. People doing this in their free time don't always follow up instantly to emails or something like that. But yeah. The waffle ideas are getting more and more crazy.
Yeah.
Just want to highlight this fractal waffles. It's a really fun one.
So we have another question from Nicholas. If a talk is rejected as a lightning talk, can it be reconsidered and moved to another category? So in general, yes. So we do have the opportunity to move talks that we think would fit one category to another. So an example of how this could happen is like if you submit for a lightning talk, which is shorter, and people look at your proposal and you're like, and then you say, this is a great proposal, but this is not going to fit in a 10-minute talk. So why don't we make this a 30-minute talk? And then you can decide like, okay, that's fine. I'm willing to record myself and maybe my co-presenter's talking for 30 minutes. Or you can say like, no, thanks. I'll try and cut some material. So it's definitely possible for us to suggest that your talk not be a lightning talk, or vice versa, that your talk would be a better fit as a lightning talk versus a 30-minute talk. So it's definitely possible for us to consider changing the categories of talks.
So the waffle idea has took off. Logan is trying to make it.
Yeah, Logan is currently in the depths of the internet, trying to find like some waffle distributor. What we need is like the like a movable type, but for waffles, like where you can move the letters. But in this case, pattern generators.
Does it exist?
I have no idea. I'm just saying it should exist. So if
Could
anybody
be business idea
has a Makerspace membership, get on it.
Exactly.
So we have another question from Martin. Are you guys giving talks this year? So I personally am not submitting a talk, just because I think I'm going to be busy enough, both with my actual day job and then also conference organizing, that I will not want to be giving a talk. And yeah, that's me. Michael, are you planning to submit a talk this year?
Yes and no. I mean, so we are like as part of the atomic structure and molecular simulation subgroup of Julia, we are sort of thinking about having a workshop. So there's some organization in the back going on that I'm not super involved with, but they asked me to give a talk, and if it gets accepted, then I'll probably do that. But that's going to be before the conference, hopefully, so a little bit less stressful. But otherwise, I will not do much.
So we have a message from Joseph, who's interested in setting up a meetup for JuliaCon. So that's awesome. So yeah, we have someone here to coordinate that. By here, I mean on the organizing committee. So let me just very quickly just pull up. Yeah, so if you are interested in organizing a local meetup, okay, I'm just going to send this to all of the chats. I'm going to paste the email address for the committee. Yeah, please email us on the organizing committee, just so we can keep track of like who wants to organize something and where, and we can keep in touch with you and figure out just like what you would need from our side to support you to organize the meetup. But that's super exciting. Thank you for volunteering, Joseph.
And just to repeat what we said right in the beginning, if you're also interested in reviewing proposals, that is also an excellent opportunity to give something back to the community. also please reach out and let us know, especially for reviewers in non-English languages, as we are allowing non-English submissions for the first time this year and probably have quite a bit of a shortage of people in that category. Martin has another follow-up. When will we receive notification whether the talk is accepted or not? So basically, when the talks are submitted, we will send them to a review committee and do 2 or 3, depending a little bit on how the results is. I think, no, 2 rounds of reviews, right? Is something that we discussed. Yeah. And so after that, we will come back to you with the results. So it's really... I mean, we hope to do it as soon as possible, as always. But as I said, people are doing this in their free time, so sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to just get back to you. So I'm finding it hard to give you a definitive answer here. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't been on the committee in the past years. So how long does this usually take?
So my recollection last year was that people got answers back in about a month, but
yeah, I would have said the same, but I don't really remember. So yeah.
Trying to convince my cat to come on stream.
Doesn't want to be a big movie star.
Apparently not.
You can definitely hear it making sounds.
Yeah. Come on. Nora, everyone wants to see your fluffy tail. Everybody wants to see your fluffy tail. She's not interested. She doesn't listen to me.
No.
Nora, are you going to submit a JuliaCon talk?
Count that as a yes.
That's her complaining about time to first plot.
Just getting louder and louder.
Exactly. It's because I'm not paying attention here.
You're trying very hard, though.
I know. Well, while I try to test my cat, does anybody have any more questions? Oh, here she comes. Hi, sweet girl. There we go.
Now we see the tail.
Exactly. Hey, little miss. Do you want to be on camera? Huh? Okay, she's done.
Briefly, at least very briefly.
Exactly.
All right, Nicholas has another one. What opportunities will there be for informal discussions after the talks? So basically what we will set up this year, as in the previous virtual years, is basically a Discord or a similar type of system to accommodate the possibility to ask questions via chat during the talk, and then of course also keep discussing about the talk and other topics that could come up in JuliaCon during the discussions. And basically you can keep chatting, and this is sort of the opportunity for informal discussions. And same as in the previous years, we also plan to have like a gather town or something along those lines at the end of each JuliaCon day or somehow arranged like that, which is just going to be an opportunity to informally meet in the virtual world and chat a little bit about Julia or whatever comes up.
So we have a question from Modern Solutions. What did I stumble into here? So this is the Q&A relaxed conversation about the JuliaCon 2022 CFP featuring a cameo by one of my cats. So if you're interested, please submit a proposal to JuliaCon 2022.
Yeah, we don't yet have
there may be more cat cameos.
Yeah, I don't have a cat. So if people ask for more cats, that means, Kate, you have to convince your cats again.
So we have another question from Modern Solutions. Do you have more than enough proposals, or are you desperately trying to fill slots? So I don't say we're desperately trying to fill slots, but it's always nice to have more people submit talks. Because the conference is fully virtual this year, there's really no limit on the number of talks we can have, which is actually a good situation to be in, because it means we can accept talks that are high quality, which most submissions usually are, without having to worry about who we have to cut because of space constraints. So if you're interested in submitting a talk, whether you're a newcomer to Julia or an expert, I would say just go for it. In general, we usually get like quite a few proposals, which is awesome. And it's always exciting to see what people are working on. So I wouldn't say there's a situation where we can have like too many proposals. So if you're at all interested, please submit.
Yeah, especially because this year we really, I mean, as I said, with this idea to address people from communities all around the world with different languages and so on, we will very likely not have the schedule where there's a sort of a fixed block where all the talks are scheduled to come live on YouTube, more like maybe multiple blocks which are really spread out, accommodating different time zones. And therefore, I think this year we are sort of more tentatively looking for more talks to really spread out over this whole program. So yeah, please, more proposals.
And then we had another question from Harlan. Is there a list of tax proposals? So that when we've gone through the review process, we'll release this year's list of accepted talks and proposals. If you're interested in seeing in previous years what kind of talks have been given to JuliaCon, all the programs for previous JuliaCons are available online at juliacon.org. So if you are interested kind of in like the style that people write their abstracts in, or the kind of talks that tend to get accepted, definitely check previous year's programs, and that should give you a good idea of the kind of talks that we usually have at JuliaCon.
So from the CFP, there are actually links directly to the websites of previous JuliaCons, and from there you can directly find find the talks and the talk lists.
And Martin asked another question. Would it be possible to submit the same talk in 2 languages? And would this be interesting for you guys? So the answer is yes to both. It's very possible to submit the same talk in multiple languages. So for example, if you'd like to give your talk in English and then also in another language or in 2 non-English languages that you speak, that's very encouraged. That would be awesome to see. So again, please just note in your proposal when you submit that you would be interested in giving the talk in multiple languages and list what those languages are. And that way we can, tag the talk with the appropriate languages and get native speakers of that language to try and review it. And also try and perhaps have a native speaker of the language the talk is given in to moderate the question chat. So yeah, that's definitely encouraged. Just please let us know in the proposal that that's what you want to do.
And then Modern Solutions has another one. How is one supposed to treat things which are still work in progress and no idea how to shake out? So I think for that, but first of all, if it sort of points to a problem that might be part of like the language or part of your design that you would consider worth sharing with the rest of the community, then I think also talks which really point towards problems or not so unsolved stuff is really highly appreciated. I don't think that necessarily a talk should always present a solution to a problem. Sometimes presenting the problem by itself could also be worth. And then secondly, sort of if it's more really like a work in progress idea, this to me sounds very much what lightning talks are also for, to get people interested into stuff you're working on, maybe to get people to actually start working with you on the topic, sort of to find collaborators. And for example, if there's a birds of feather which sort of fits the topic, that could also be a good point to reach out to and just sort of find further people to really get going on a particular topic. Oh, and of course, there to some extent experiences are also meant for this, right? So people who sort of start to get into a project and stumble across a problem, I think an experience could also be a good point to really reach out and present it.
Cool. So we've been going for about an hour. So if anybody has any last minute questions they want to get in, now's the time. And we'll also be available both on Slack and Discourse and at least in my case, Twitter. So if you think of a burning question you have after this ends, please feel free to ask it in any of those venues too. So Modern Solutions has a question about Jump. Will Jump be a BOF this year? So it's definitely possible we could have a BOF focused on Jump, but Jump also has their own conference track this year. So they're accepting, I think, basically all the same types of conference submissions that the main JuliaCon CFP is. So if you want to organize a Jump BOF or ask other people to organize one, that's great too. But you can also submit Jump specific talks if that's something you're interested in doing.
So then Nicholas asked about these BOF sessions that I've been mentioning and whether there's sort of a later submission deadline. So maybe this was not a good way to phrase it. So typically you can, or people might submit a birds of feather, a proposal for a topic that fits you. And then if this gets accepted, you can reach out to the organizers of this birds of feather session to see if you can basically engage with the discussion and see what they have planned and so on and so forth. So typically birds of a feather sessions are really also around to jumpstart the development around a certain topic. But I mean, as of now, they are also not yet known. Of course, there could be potentially, if a particular problem is of broader interest, that could, for example, be the opportunity to submit a birds of a feather and sort of get started on a discussion on that topic with the rest of the people. So Modern Solution asks if the jump CFP is different. Yeah, not really, actually, because jump uses exactly the same submission system as we do. But the review and the program organization is done by, yeah, basically it's a sort of a separate track, and the organization and the review process is a bit different. I mean, not different. It's following the same review stages, but the whole organization of the program is separate from the main of JuliaCon. So CFP is the same, review is pretty much the same, but then organization of the program is a different story.
Cool. So I guess it's been an hour. So thanks everybody who attended and watched and asked questions. Good luck with your proposals, and hopefully we'll see you all virtually, at least at JuliaCon.
Yeah, looking forward to talk to you virtually.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great weekend.